What's going on, everyone? Man, you guys already know I love not only looking at future technology, I like looking at past. And I kind of find it interesting, dude, because I used to only look at the older technology because that's what I could only afford. But now, bro, I be making renders and stuff about like phones that aren't even released yet. That just goes to show, man, don't give up on your dreams. But as I was looking at all my older iPhones, I started looking at like the negatives of each iPhone because like I'm a pessimist. Just kidding, I'm not. But sometimes I do have that quality, and I'm looking at like the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 8 and iPhone 10 and iPhone 6S and all these other ones, and I'm like, every single iPhone pretty much had something wrong with it. Like not like something that was like detrimental or was like going to like affect the usability of it, but something that like like a negative perception around it. Like with the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus, we had Bendgate. With the iPhone 6S, we had the battery issues. The 7, the removal of the headphone jack. The iPhone 8, I don't even know what those things had. Probably nothing, but basically every single iPhone had some type of issue with it, and just the public just had something negative to say, and those iPhones still kind of do have that reputation, even with the 10s, 10R, all those phones. I mean, they're too expensive, this and that. But one iPhone that I could not think of that just had something so wrong with it, or something that I see on a public daily basis of like forums and stuff of people bashing it, one iPhone that I just think is just overall positive and people just embrace it and love is the iPhone SE. And literally every single time I make an iPhone SE video, or even the iPhone SE2 renders or stuff, those tend to be the most popular videos I upload within that week span. That really says a lot because I upload so much, you guys already know. So for that specific phone model to be so hyped up like that and people want it, that really goes to show how much the predecessor was loved. And with the iPhone SE, I mean, I've seen very few complaints about it. Pretty much everyone loves the iPhone SE. And I started wondering, I'm like, why? Why does everyone love the iPhone SE? I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from it, but I kind of broke it down, and it's almost stuff that really separated the iPhone SE versus all the other iPhones at least during that release time. And the main thing, there's two, but they're kind of tied. I think the other one is more important. But the first thing, I mean, the low price. When this thing was released, it wasn't competing with the newest iPhone 6S or the Samsung Galaxy S6, I think it was out at the time, or the S7 Edge or whatever. It wasn't competing with those phones. It was mostly fitting into a gap or a niche market that Apple was kind of, bubbled into. And thankfully, when they released this thing, it wasn't selling for like $800 or $700 or $650. It was much cheaper than the iPhone 6S. So if people wanted to, if they couldn't afford the latest iPhone, they could easily go and afford the iPhone SE, and it filled in that gap of the low price point. So this was able to get into a lot more people's hands, and it still had these same specifications for the most part that the iPhone 6S had, except in a smaller frame and smaller screen and smaller body. And people loved that kind of thing. They weren't really sacrificing or giving up anything. Whereas in today's age, I mean, with the iPhone 10R, it's not as fast technically as the iPhone 10s or the 10s Max, but on the iPhone SE, in my opinion, and on my usage, even on iOS 12.2, which is the latest version right now, the iPhone SE, I think, might be faster than the iPhone 6S, which is pretty crazy considering they both have the same chipset, the same amount of RAM and everything. And I kind of hinted on this too, but the size of this phone, I mean, this was a smaller iPhone and really the smallest iPhone they've made since the release of the iPhone SE. And so many people wanted an updated, smaller iPhone. And the iPhone 5S at that time wasn't extremely slow, but people were kind of pushing, we need 2 gigs of RAM, we need this and that. And dude, the iPhone SE, in my opinion, is such a perfect size. I mean, I hope we can see another iPhone in this body shape sometime soon. That's why I keep making those renders. I want people to get hyped up about it, to make some buzz and, show Apple that there is a market that wants it, because if people are going to buy it, then they're going to make it, honestly, at this point. And the size is one of those things that people just loved about it. And it wasn't too big, it wasn't amazingly large, but also it wasn't extremely small. And it wasn't like this was the only option. If you wanted a bigger phone, you can go for the iPhone 6S or the 7 or the 8. And if you wanted a bigger phone than that, go for the 8 Plus, the 6S Plus, whatever phones were out at the time of you looking at it. People had options, people had availability, and it's a shame that Apple doesn't sell it in the Apple stores anymore. And I think that's why people go back on the iPhone SE to basically say, we want a smaller iPhone. And Apple does occasionally resell them in certain batches, and it goes like weeks and weeks without seeing one. But I think it's just a crazy thing. That size, they nailed it on the dot, and I'm surprised they have not made an updated version since then. And also, man, the usability and the practicality of it. And you might be wondering what those two things mean, but pretty much I never really had any problems with the battery life on this thing at all. And if you remember a long time ago, probably like early iOS 12, when those things were coming out, on my second channel, I did a video on basically the battery tests on all the iPhones, and they were all running iOS 12. And I found that out of the 7, 6, 6S, and I think the iPhone 8 was there too. Out of those 4 iPhones and the iPhone SE, the iPhone SE was able to last the longest on screen on time than all the other iPhones on iOS 12, which was insane. It didn't even have the biggest battery out of all those, which is pretty crazy. And I'm not really afraid to use this thing, and I think that's kind of the more so the usability of it. It's I can take this thing out, and if I drop it and if I crack the screen, I don't have to put out like $1,000 to fix it or $300. I can easily fix it myself through eBay, and all the parts can go synced over and everything, and I don't have to worry about the home button not working or anything like that. And that's kind of the practicality aspect of it too, because the repairability, a lot of illity ending words, but that aspect of it really makes me think that a lot of people at that time and nowadays don't want to give up their right to repair their devices, and that's kind of a big issue that's going on with Apple right now. And with the iPhone SE, the practicality, repairability, and usability of it is insane. And also, man, the performance is still top tier. I mean, as long as you're not comparing it side by side, like I say in all my other comparisons, you're not going to notice that big of a difference. But without a doubt, the iPhone SE's performance was very good when it was released, and I still think it is pretty good. Whenever I pick it up and slide through the home screens and just open up an app, that thing is just so fluid. It pops up just like right immediately. And I think it's still an extremely fast device without a doubt. And pretty much my main point and what I want to bubble this whole entire comparison or just this kind of analysis down to is the iPhone SE really didn't compromise on anything, you know? And maybe it did in a couple cases, but I think the positives just outshine the negatives in so many different areas that it really didn't matter that, you know, it lacked Force Touch or it didn't have Touch ID 2 or like the front camera was less megapixels than the 6. Like nobody cared about that because it wasn't trying to be something that it wasn't, you know? It was just filling in that niche of being a smaller device. It gave everybody everything they needed, and it didn't really necessarily lack in anything else. And it's interesting because the iPhone XR, I believe if it was just a smaller device, if they made the iPhone XR smaller than the iPhone XS, I think so many people would have gone crazy. It's still a pretty good seller right now, but I think it could have been more successful had they made it smaller, something like the iPhone SE. So in my opinion, man, the iPhone SE, the reason it's loved, why everyone likes it so much, is because it didn't compromise. It didn't compromise on anything. It gave you everything you needed and probably then some. And the fact that it's still getting supported by iOS and people still talk about it and people have so much hype around the predecessor of this phone, it makes me just so happy that I'm able to purchase an iPhone SE and basically use it on a weekly basis or whenever I'm able to. But I love the iPhone SE. If you're watching this, I love you. If you currently own an iPhone SE, let me know your opinion about it. Let me know your experience with it. Have you been enjoying using it? Have you had any distastes, negatives, whatever? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd really appreciate it. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button. That'll mean so much. But definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it'll mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I would really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.